and this is No Frills ASMR. I just made a video, just kind of really quietly looking at this with a whisper. But I really kind of enjoyed looking at it, and I saw some things I wanted to go back and read up a little more. So I figured, well, maybe I'll shoot a second video with a soft spoken for people who would prefer that. But this book is called How They Croaked, The Awful Ends of the Awfully Famous. And in the comments of a video, somebody mentioned this book. I was like, oh, I need that book. That sounds interesting. So I ran off and ordered it from a thrift bookseller, and they shipped it right away. And I think altogether with shipping, it was like under $6 or something. It was a pretty good value for this. So. And to have it brought to your home, you know. Look, there's a skull with a little mousey. So yeah, this book has a copyright of 2011. But because it's historical, hopefully a lot of it is still relevant. The pages, a lot of them have like this little graveyard. And they do say, as a word of warning, they say, warning, if you don't have the guts for gore, do not read this book. So if you really don't like hearing about death and dying, I wouldn't watch this. But it's not really that bad. I think it's kind of a book that was published for, teenagers, whatever. But I found it interesting, so I think you will too. The other thing I ordered, I'll just show you real quick because it happened to come in the same package, were these socks. I walk all the time. I have a pair on, so I've already taken one pair. There's 2, 3. There's 4. There's actually 5 pairs in here because I have one pair on my feet. But I walk every day, and I have these shorter socks, but it's gotten so cold out, and my legs were getting cold. So I thought, I want a longer sock that I can be a nerd and put it on the outside of my leggings so the wind doesn't go in there, or even my jeans, whatever, or at least have them pulled up. So I ordered these. I wanted to get, I need good socks, because some socks, because I walk a long way, I've walked for over an hour, they rub, and that's really uncomfortable. So I'm trying these. I hope they work out. I like them. They have a little extra padding here. I think it was 5 pairs for $15. I'll put it in my Amazon shop or whatever. I'll try to remember to put a link. If you ever are buying something on Amazon and you're like, I don't really care, I'll go through the link. If you go through that link and then order stuff, I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but I think I get a little commission from that. So, I've put the link on a few things, and I think over the last year, I have made $13. So it's not a lot of money, but whatever, every little bit, because I put that 13 into my Amazon account and then buy things like this with it, so whatever. Anyway, all right, so I have one pair on right now. Hold on, I'll show you. They're blue. I have my sweatpants on, so it's not very attractive. That was exciting, but they fit. They fit real snug, so they're not gonna fall down. The only thing is, when you take them off, they fit sort of snug enough that they leave like an imprint on your calf. But I bought some at Costco that were so loosey-goose, they kept falling down. I was like, ugh, I don't like these. Anyway, okay, back to the book. Back to the book. Okay, so like they have all these different people like King Tut, and it gives you a little information. And then there's a whole story about a little bit about their life, and then about their death. And then like this one is about being mummified. I mean, I haven't read any of these yet, so I'm kind of... But then the part that I was like, I want to go back and look at, they have these like facts. And I thought that could be interesting. With this one in the Whisper video, I talked about how they used to grind up mummies and make medicines. And then I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, this. But they also had this mummy paint. I'm like, wait, what? And it says, ground up mummy produced a deep brown, favored by romantic painters. That's how many mummies they were finding, you guys. There were problems with this paint. That's wild to think that maybe some of the old paintings had mummy ground up mummy. It never dried. It dripped down the painting in hot weather. It contracted and cracked in cold weather. It ruined any color under, over, or near it. Yeah, that's a problem. That would be a problem. What is this? King Tut under glass. Tut's mummy. Hold on, I gotta itch my ear. Okay. Tut's mummy was removed from its sarcophagus and placed in a climate-controlled glass case in Tut's tomb, which was open for viewing for the first time in 2007. The mummy has been examined 5 times in the past, but only now is the public able to view it. Huh. So you can go in his tomb now? That's interesting. I remember when like they did a like opening King Tut's tomb. It's like a TV show. Julius Caesar. And they talk all about Caesar. Autopsy. Let's look at this. Things named after Caesar. July. Julius Caesar was born in the month of Quintilis. It was renamed July. Oh, I see. Calendar. The Julian calendar. Roman leaders. Every Roman leader after him is named Caesar somebody or other. Tsar. Russian leaders were named Tsar, which comes from Caesar. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that loud noise. I did not know that. Kaiser. German leaders were named Kaiser, which comes from Caesar. C-section is a Caesarean section birth. Things not named after Caesar. Caesar salad originated in the 1920s by Caesar Cardini. Of course, he was named after Julius Caesar, yeah. So, Cleopatra. Ooh, a snakey, snake. Snake. Christopher Columbus. They show a mosquito. You know, they kill more humans than anything, I think, in the world, don't they? Or is that? I think that's right. Gout. Gout is caused by a deposit of sharp crystals in the joints. The crystals form when there's abnormally high concentrations of uric acid in the blood. If you ever start to get like in your feet, like the joint where your toes go of your feet, and you get up in the morning and you're like, ow, 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 or even just walking, that could very well be gout. And you can look up foods with uric acid. I'm not a doctor. I am not a doctor. But I have this and kind of cut them out, which is like spinach and shrimp and I forget, oatmeal, I think. It can help, maybe. You could try it. It's worth a try. Crystals are minute, splinter-sharp fragments that can form overnight, followed by shivering and fever. They most often attack the big toe, but the heel, the calf, and the ankles are also targets. Half of gout sufferers have kidney stones too. Gout causes severe agony. It even hurts to wear shoes or clothes. Here's mapping maps. 150 AD. Oh boy. How do you say this? I know how to say PT together, like somewhere in my brain I do. I just can't think of it right now, but it's Ptolemy. Anyway, drew 26 maps with India, where America is. That's why Columbus thought he had reached India when he had actually discovered a new place not on any map, and why Native Americans were called Indians. In 1492, first globe of Earth, missing the soon-to-be discovered Americas and the Pacific Ocean. That's a big miss, but they hadn't discovered it yet. 1507, the first map showing the Americas. 1677, first known published map of the English colonies in North America. Huh, that's kind of interesting. Henry VIII. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Where are the other ones? Oh no, he's Henry VIII. He had 6 wives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His 6 wives were Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr. Lots of Catherines. Elizabeth the First. How they croaked. Pocahontas. Pocahontas' kidnapping. Pocahontas was kidnapped and taken 55 miles upriver to the fenced-in town of Henrico. Religion was the main focus there. Twice daily church attendance was mandatory, and punishment for non-compliance was severe. Isn't that weird? Because the whole point of moving from Europe to the U.S. was to have freedom of religion, but then there was like all this, you must be religious, when really it was your freedom to be religious or not to be religious. Anyway, missed once, no food for a week. Missed twice, flogged. Missed often, shot, hanged, or burned at the stake. That's Henrico County, Virginia, I think, right? Captain Samuel Argall was the English ship captain who kidnapped Pocahontas by tricking her into boarding his ship. Argall was captain of the ship on which Pocahontas was taken to London, where colonists hoped to use her to raise more money for the colony. Argall was also captain of the ship the sick and dying Pocahontas boarded for the return trip to Virginia. Pocahontas died before they got out to sea. Things that Pocahontas noticed about King James I. So I guess she must have written this down or something. Teeth falling out, gulped down his food, never changed clothes, prone to excessive sweating, didn't bathe, didn't like women. Oh, eek. Sounds icky. Galileo. Like they showed putting lead in here equals dead. Lead equals dead. Missing fingers, vertebrae, and tooth. I think we talked about this in the video about Galileo. In 1737, while Galileo's body was being moved to a larger tomb, fans took 3 of his fingers, a vertebrae, and a tooth. One finger is at the Museum of the History of Science in Florence. The vertebrae is at the University of Padua, Italy. 2 fingers and the tooth were kept by an Italian marquis, but they disappeared around 1905. 2 fingers and a tooth. God. In 2009, 2 fingers and a tooth were sold at auction without any identification. Turns out they were Galileo's long-lost body parts. Oh my God. Yeeks. Oh, they have a little thing about lead poisoning. Can cause intestine, stomach pain, and mental disturbances. Causes of lead poisoning: lead glazes on plate, bowls, or utensils, lead crystal decanters, wine cured in lead casks, lead added to wine and other foods as a sweetener or to stop spoilage. Wow, I didn't know they added it for that reason. Yeah, I have a lot of vintage, dishes. And lead was always like in the back of my mind. And then I made a video and somebody said, you should stop using that stuff. It has lead. So I bought a lead testing kit and made a video where I tested everything. And I got rid of anything that had lead. But unless it's just for looks, if it's just sitting on the counter, I'm like, whatever. But if I use it. The Roman Inquisition. The Inquisition was an effort by the Roman Catholic Church to seek out and punish heretics. A heretic was anyone who opposed the teachings of the Church. In 1231, a special court was created to investigate heretics. In 1542, the Congregation of the Holy Office took control of the Inquisition. The main operations were in France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. The judges were Dominican and I know this word. Sometimes a word just fails me. Franciscan friars is my word. The inquisitors often misused their power, imprisoning, torturing, and burning their victims. For centuries, people lived in fear for their lives. Wow. That movie, did you watch that movie, Heretic? It was a pretty good movie. All those horror movies, they kind of like go off the rails at the end, but always interesting. Leeching. A leech is a blood-sucking worm. Leeching is a practice by using leeches to get out so-called bad blood. Steps for successful leeching. They still use this, I think, sometimes, leeches, for certain things. Don't use sick leeches. How do you know if they're sick? Soak leeches in beer. Smear blood where you want them to take hold. Put leeches in a cup and invert onto the skin. Don't let leeches wander off. Let leech drop off when it wants. If you pull it off, its jaw may get stuck in the skin, which will get infected and bleed profusely. Never use on face or neck because they leave disfiguring scars. You'll end up with a discolored eyelid for life if a leech sucks on it. I told a story in the Whisper video that we used to go canoeing in Michigan. And one time my sister came out of the water and she had leeches all over, and we just pulled them off. But I guess they weren't probably fully latched on. She was fine. No disfiguring scars. Recommended dose 15 to 20 leeches per adult, 3 to 6 for kids age 5 and under, one per infant. So I guess this was just what they used to recommend. Sometimes unstoppable bleeding follows a leech bite. This is especially dangerous in children. Oh gosh. Mozart's widow threw away many of Mozart's unfinished musical compositions. She's like, I'm done with it. Wow. George and Martha Washington threw away all their love letters to each other. Look, some of us are just like that. We're not super sentimental. I throw away everything. I'm like, I'm done with that. Done with that. My husband will be like, you threw away that birthday card. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, birthday's over. Christopher Columbus's family sold off all his maps and charts. That is interesting, isn't it? When you're part of that family, you're like, oh, I don't know, these are just some old thing Dad made that he never used or whatever. The guillotine. Oh yeah, this is after the Marie Antoinette. The guillotine is a decapitating machine named after its French inventor, Dr. Guillotine. First execution, April 25th of 1792. Last execution, September 10th, 1977. And they wrote, What's that? What's September 10th, 1977. Oh, yeah, actually, that's way later. Is that, excuse me? Look at that date. 1977. I was 7 years old. I see why they wrote it. I mean, I don't know. I was going to say it's probably a fairly quick and definite way to, end a life, I guess. I don't know. The metal blade weighs 88 pounds. The average height of the guillotine is 14 feet. The blade falls at 21 feet per second. A beheading takes 1/50th of a second. This is the part that I was fascinated. I used to get nightmares about this when I was little. Removing the head does not kill the brain. It can stay alive for up to 13 seconds after decapitation until it dies from lack of oxygen. Consciousness can cease immediately because there's no blood pressure. But I don't know if we know. There was an episode of The Bionic Woman, I think, or maybe it's Bionic Man, where this person got their head cut off. Now, I was a kid, like under 10 years old. And I think what was cut off was a robot head. Actually, it looked like a person, but it was a robot. And the head was sitting there and it was still like moving or something. I had nightmares about that for so many years, like maybe to this day. Crazy. Anyway, Marie Antoinette's hairdo, something. Oh, we read the famous last words are George Washington. Bloodletting. Let's see what the deal is with that. Bloodletting was extraction of so-called bad blood from the body. Bloodletting do's and don'ts. Do use a sharp, clean knife. A dirty knife could cause inflammation and death. I don't like that they're not like saying don't do this anymore, because young people could read this and be like, oh, so this works. Like, what? Do select. Yeah, I don't like this at all. Do select the largest vein at the bend of the arm. Do aim the knife carefully. Do place a bowl in the right position to catch the blood. They do say don't try this at home, but I feel like maybe this needs to be. Bloodletting don'ts. Don't hit a nerve, even though it's almost impossible to avoid them. Oh my God. Ugh. How terrible. Don't soak the patient in his own blood, and don't soak the sheets either. Don't touch the wound with your sweaty fingers because an abscess might develop, followed by the impairment of the entire arm, which will then lead to a hasty death. Oh my God. These are George Washington's rules. As a teenager, Washington copied down the 110 rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation. Here is a sampling. Rule number 12. Shake not the head, feet, or legs. Roll not the eyes. Lift not one eyebrow higher than the other. Wry not the mouth. And bedew no man's face with your spittle by approaching too near him when you speak. I see. Don't spit on him by getting too close. Don't be a close talker. Rule 14. Turn not your back to others, especially in speaking. Jog not the table or desk on which another reads or writes. So, like shake, I think. Lean not upon anyone. Rule 53. Run not in the streets. So don't run in the streets. Neither go too slow, nor with mouth open. Go not shaking your arms. Nor with mouth open. Go not shaking your arms. I don't know. Kick not the earth with your feet. Go not upon the toes, nor in a dancing fashion. Okay. Rule 70. Reprehend not the imperfections of others, for that belongs to parents, masters, and superiors. Rule 95. Put not your meat to your mouth with your knife. Put not your meat to your mouth with your knife in your hand, neither spit forth the stones of any fruit. I'm reading. It's hard to read because they have capitals in weird places. Neither spit forth the stones of any fruit pie upon a dish, nor cast anything under the table. Okay, so put your knife down before you eat your meat. If you get a stone like a pit in your mouth, don't spit it on the dish. You spit into your napkin, I suppose. And don't throw stuff under the table that you don't like. Okay. Napoleon Bonaparte. St. Helen. First ambulance. A Napoleon complex describes people who think they have a shortcoming and try to cover it up by overdoing other things in their lives. They say Napoleon's crazy desire to take over the world was to compensate for being short. Napoleon was average in height for the times, 5'5". He just seemed short because he hung around his imperial guards who were extra tall. Okay. Ludwig von Beethoven. I did all this in the Whisper video. We tried them all out. Where's the raven? Nevermore. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. This is about Edgar Allan Poe, who wrote The Raven. Doctors recently re-examined Poe's medical records. It's possible a rabid animal bit him, but the raccoon says, I didn't do it. He refused to drink water at the hospital. People with rabies are unable to swallow water, and people with rabies also act like they're, drunk, which would explain why he didn't sober up. The penniless Poe may have been part of a voter fraud scheme right before he died. Potential voters at the time were kept in rooms where they would change into various clothes and then go to different polling places so they could vote more than once. The payoff was free alcohol. And Reynolds, the name Poe kept calling out at the end, was the name of a polling official. To this day, no one is completely certain if Poe died of rabies or of something else. But one thing seems clear. Poe wanted to take his place in the realm of the dead in a big hurry. After all, everybody he had ever loved was already there. Oh, that's sad. I'll have to read that. That seems kind of interesting. Tuberculosis. More than 1 million people have died of tuberculosis. Well, it's the biggest killer. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. More than 1 billion people have died of tuberculosis. It's the biggest killer of all time. 1 of every 7 people died from tuberculosis in the 1800s when Poe was alive. Wow. Can you imagine? Think of like your friends and family. If 1 out of every 7 died of the same disease, you'd be like, holy smoke. A person catches tuberculosis by breathing in airborne bacteria when a sick person sneezes or coughs. It used to be called consumption because it seemed to consume its victims. It was a bad way to go, a bad way. The symptoms are coughing up blood, wasting away, fever, and chest pain. Cattle, frogs, turtle, some birds, and even fish can get tuberculosis. The first tuberculosis vaccine was developed in 1921. Today, tuberculosis can be cured with antibiotics, but it still kills almost 2 million people every year. Wow. And then they have rabies. People get rabies when an animal infected with rabies, most likely a dog, cat, skunk, cow, wolf, or raccoon, bites them. My son's friend got bit by a bat, and he had to get rounds of rabies shots because they couldn't test the bat. I guess it went away. I don't know. So they didn't know, if he could have been exposed. You can also get rabies from breathing the air in caves where infected bats live. In most cases, symptoms appear 1 to 3 months after exposure, depending on when the virus reaches the brain. Symptoms include restlessness, confusion, agitation, terror, and an inability to swallow water. Louis Pasteur developed a vaccine against rabies in 1885. 55,000 people still die of rabies every year, mostly in Asia and Africa. Wow. Charles Dickens. Isn't this book kind of interesting? I think it's pretty cool. But I like these sections because they're fun. Cupping, I always see like in the Olympics, those people, they have like the cupping things. What's the deal here? Cupping was one of the procedures used to get so-called bad blood out of the body. It was more painful than bleeding or leeching. The skin had to be free of hair and bony prominences. Otherwise, sufficient sucking action wouldn't be possible. It's kind of like getting a hickey. Do people still do hickeys? Is that like out of fashion? When I was in high school, everybody had hickeys. There was one girl who would always have like a ring of hickeys around her neck, like perfectly placed, like it was a necklace. So stupid. Anyway, cupping too close to a blood vessel, nerve, or tendon would hurt a lot and bleed too much. A cup with a suction bulb on top worked best. Cupping was perfectly safe, although sometimes it was followed by annoying, if not fatal, bleeding. Well, then it wasn't perfectly safe if it had fatal bleeding. What? This doesn't make sense. But I think they do it on the athletes to get blood, like towards their muscle, but I don't know if that's like just pseudoscience or what. Manic depressive illness. That's bad. Having that is manic symptoms. My friend's dad is manic depressive. think they call it something else now, don't they? But he loves the feeling of the mania so much he doesn't want to take his medication, and it leads to a lot of problems, to be honest. Manic symptoms: overly happy, wired, impulsive, extreme irritability, moody, unrealistic belief in one's ability. Depressive symptoms: feeling worried or empty, no interest in anything, tired, depressed, bipolar, lasts a lifetime and there's no cure. Oof. James Garfield. I've seen it. I just watched a Netflix show about him. It was good. Secret Service timeline. It's interesting because Abraham Lincoln's assassination's way back here, but they didn't start a Secret Service. 1865, first created to fight counterfeits. Okay, interesting. 1894, informal protection of President Cleveland. 1902, assumed full protection of President Theodore Roosevelt, approved by Congress in 1907. So that's when it became like a presidential security. 1908, protection of the president-elect. So that means once he's elected in November, but until he's sworn in January, he'd have that protection. 1970, protection of president's immediate family in 1917. 1962, protection of vice president. In 1965, they started protection of former president and spouses for life. In 1997, presidents elected after January 1997 have protection for only 10 years after leaving office. Medical advances too late for Garfield. Yeah, you have to watch the show on Netflix. It's pretty good, and I think it's a pretty realistic showing of his assassination and what happened. And it's really good showing this Guteau who assassinated him and just the whole story. I thought it was good. It was good. All right. These pages, they're like thick. So it always feels like you have more than one. Here are different phobias. A phobia is a strong, irrational fear of something that can sometimes cause breathlessness, nausea, dizziness, and anxiety. Agoraphobia, fear of leaving the house. I first learned about agoraphobia in the 80s because the song by Men at Work, Who Can It Be Now, was supposedly about agoraphobia. So I think we all heard about that then. And then you heard about the phobia of spiders because there was a movie called Arachnophobia. Anyway, all right. Apophobia is fear of bees. I don't have that. I love my bees. I think they're awesome. What does this say? Arachibutyrophobia. Arachibutyrophobia. Fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of the mouth. Wow. Arithmophobia. Fear of numbers. I might have that. Not really. Not medically, but barophobia. Fear of gravity. Well, I would have a fear of not having gravity. That's weird. Not weird, but unusual. Dipanophobia, fear of dining with others. Emetophobia, fear of vomiting. I think that's a common one, emetophobia. I kind of think my husband does that. I swear. When he gets sick, he starts having anxiety because he's worried he'll vomit. Like he doesn't like to vomit. I mean, big time. Gelatophobia, fear of being laughed at. Look at this word. This is hilarious. gross. Okay, you ready for this? Hippopotamonstrosesquipedophilia. Okay, hippopotamonstrosesquipedalophobia, fear of long words. Long words. That's silly. Nephophobia, fear of clouds. Olfactophobia, fear of smells. Panophobia, fear of everything. Papophobia, fear of the Pope. Oh, papophobia. Pupophobia, fear of puppets. Testophobia, fear of taking tests. These are made up. This can't be real. Tonitrophobia, fear of thunder. What about fear of clowns? Clowny phobia. I think my fear of clowns is because in the 70s, first of all, they had all these creepy clown paintings that were in all, it was like weird. They were weird. And then when I was probably 10 or 11, maybe, is when Gacy, the serial killer who would dress as a clown, was arrested, and it was in all the magazines. They had pictures of him, and I just got freaked out. And then in college, we were in Chicago, and it was kind of nighttime, and there was a clown, and I was like, 20, and I like kind of got next to him, and I was like, take our picture. And I think he was really drunk, but he like flipped me off right in my face and yelled at me, which is fair. I was running up on him, but it was before selfies. He just was stupid. He was carrying balloons too. It was wild. I was like, oh my God. Wild. I had it coming. Anyway, aplastic anemia. This is a condition in which bone marrow does not make enough new cells to replenish the blood. It causes low counts in red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Symptoms include lack of energy, unhealthy paleness, palpitations, and easy bruising. The most common cause is exposure to toxins and unprotected exposure to radioactive material. Interesting. This is after the Marie Curie and the radioactivity. That's why they're talking about this one, this radioluminescent paint. I talked about that in the video I made about the radioactive girls who painted the clock faces. I'm going to reshare that video when I post this. Radioluminescent paint glowed in the dark. It was made of radioactive material mixed with luminescent crystalline powder. It was first used in 1902 to paint clock dials. By 1920, more than 4 million watches and clocks had been painted. Also painted were house numbers, bedroom slippers, fish bait, theater seat numbers, pistol sights, and eyes on dolls. Radioactive materials and paint have been discontinued since the 1970s. Wow. Albert Einstein. Einstein's eyeballs. Cremation 101. To cremate is to burn a corpse by fire. Here's how. Remove jewelry, gold fillings, pacemakers, prosthetics, and any mechanical implants. They won't burn, and they might ruin the cremation chamber. Set a fire between 1400 and 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure the body is burning properly. If not, move it around. Wait 1.5 to 3 hours depending on the body's size. Let the ashes cool. Sweep the ashes out of the chamber. I'm not going to read that. Get an urn large enough to hold between 3 and 9 pounds of whitish ash. I remember, never mind, I'm not telling that story. Maybe this is getting too dark. Noble Einstein quotes. Why is it nobody understands me and everybody likes me? With fame, I become more and more stupid, which of course is a very common phenomenon. I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. That's kind of like me. I have no talents. I'm just curious about stuff. Look deep, deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. Yes, that's a good one. I like that. I should make one of those signs. People are. There is only one road to true human greatness, through the school of hard knocks. Okay, true. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. We must dedicate our lives to drying up the source of war, ammunition factories. Interesting. The people in this book didn't become famous because of how they croaked, but because of how they lived. That's right. The lives of these important historical figures intersected in some fascinating ways. Napoleon's men found the Rosetta Stone, which helped decipher the hieroglyphics in King Tut's tomb. So King Tut and Napoleon intersect. Mozart and Beethoven, they met each other, it says, okay. Caesar and Cleopatra, they had a son together, okay. The daughter of Columbus's benefactor married Henry. I don't think that's a good enough connection. Pocahontas met Queen Elizabeth's successor, King James I. Okay. Marie Antoinette. Oh, and Napoleon, her grandniece, married him. I don't know, these are pretty lame connections. Einstein credits Galileo in his theories. Well, sure. Dickens and Darwin both took the famous water cure in search of better health. Okay, well, those aren't very exciting. I thought that might be more interesting, Further reading. Index. Let's look up. Did they have a thing about the water cure? Hold on. I want to know what the water cure is. I know I've heard of it. I just